Hello everybody, my name is Professor Rich and today we are looking at IELTS speaking, a real IELTS speaking, and I have a slightly wonky hat, a wonky hat. Anyway, we're going to have a look at a real IELTS speaking with a real candidate who is really taking the exam shortly. Let's have a look at our plan for today. Can we have a look at our plan for today, please? So today, I want to start by discussing the exam rubric. So the rubric is what the examiner uses, the band descriptors, what the examiner uses to determine your band of English, to give you a grade. Now, the way that works in IELTS, is that the examiner records the audio of the exam and then listens to it afterwards and gives you a mark based on the band descriptors based on that. So that's different than Cambridge English, where there's two examiners and the exam is marked live. And actually, normally in Cambridge English, the exam is not recorded. However, that is starting to change. Cambridge English have been discussing recording the exams for some time now. So we're going to start with discussing. Thank you, Rich. Today we're going to discuss the band descriptors, and then we're going to listen and mark two speaking exams. So this is from the same candidates, and we did two different speaking exams. We will discuss what we think the marks are and give some feedback, positive and negative feedback. The gentleman who is featured in these recordings is with us today, the lovely Domenico Fauci. So we are going to be very polite about his lovely, lovely English, and he will be taking the exam in, I think, about 2 weeks. Is that right, Domenico? And then finally, I will look at your homework from last week. So all of this is probably going to take quite a while, and as you can see, I'm mega disorganized today. So we're flying by the seat of our pants. Hello everybody, how are you doing today? Daisy, always wonderful to have you here. Mina, Nipa, hello. Manjula, hello. Some people don't have Discord. I will talk a bit later about Discord. So our learning community is now on Discord. If you would like to be part of an amazing, friendly language learning community, then join our Discord. The link is below the video, and I will also post that in the chat later. It's really easy. At first, it looks scary, but it is really easy. So use Discord. It's great. It's better than Skype. It's much more secure, and I can give more power to Daisy and Pavia so they can abuse their power. No, do not abuse your power. They can make sure that our community continues to be lovely and friendly and safe and all that. Right. So I want to start with the band descriptors. Now, I know it seems a bit boring to talk about band descriptors, but it's super important because the band descriptors are exactly how your exam is graded. And having plenty of experience as a speaking examiner, I know that examiners do lots of calibrations and training based on the band descriptors. And you have to be able to measure candidates within a certain band descriptor. And if you're too far out, then you lose your right to examine. And that's what we do when we do a calibration as a speaking examiner. So a bunch of speaking examiners come together. We watch a video which comes straight from IELTS Central, and then everyone gives it a grade, and then you compare your grades to the IELTS Central grade, and you need to be within a 0.5. So you need to be overall within a 0.5 of theirs. You can be 0.5 above, 0.5 below, or bang on, right? So the examiners are trained on that, and the justification is based on this. Now, this version that you can see is the public version of the band descriptors. So the version that the examiners have is much more comprehensive. However, it is not permitted to reproduce the examiner's version of the band descriptors. So this is the public version, which is available on the IELTS website. And let's have a look at these and try to understand this. So first, if we look at the top, we have the 4 areas. So we've got fluency and coherence. So we might call this fluency. We all know what that is. Coherence. So coherence is kind of communicative competency. All of this stuff coming out of your mouth, how well does that link together, and how much does that make sense? Does that seem like a proper communicative resource, a proper flow of communication? Then we have lexical resource, which is a fancy way to say vocabulary. And then we have grammatical range and accuracy, which in my language is word form, phrase form, and vocabulary use. When I say use, I mean you're using it with the right preposition, you're using it in the right form, you're using it in the right place in the sentence, right? So they call it grammatical range and accuracy. I call it word form, phrase form, word order, those kind of things. And then finally, we move on to pronunciation. We all know what that is, but it does actually encapsulate a variety of pronunciation features, not simply sounds, right? And because we're using the public version, those features are not broken down entirely. But on the examiner's version, there is a breakdown where we'll talk about appropriate intonation, inappropriate intonation, appropriate sentence stress, appropriate use of near-native phonemic features of the language, such as glottal stops, and so on and so on. So when it says here a wide range of pronunciation features, we're talking about all those lovely things, not just the sounds, but the intonation, the sentence stress, the other, what do they call them? Suprasegmental phonemic features. That's the one. I remember that from my diploma in 2016. Anyway, let's have a look at the breakdown of these. So Domenico is hoping for a 7.5 or something better, maybe if we get really fancy. So we're going to focus around that area of the bands. And looking at fluency and coherence, we can see that an 8 says speaks fluency with only occasional repetition or self-correction. So repetition's okay, self-correction's okay, but occasional. Now, what's occasional? Well, that is up to the judgment of the individual examiner. So what do we consider to be occasional? There's no exact number, but obviously if we have frequent repetition, that's not occasional repetition. So that's quite strict, that idea of only occasional repetition or self-correction. Self-correction, okay, but occasional, not happening every sentence. Hesitation is usually content related and only rarely to search for language. So hesitation is content related. What does that mean? It means you're okay to hesitate and think about what you're going to say. So if I ask a question like, what's your favorite kind of banana? then you have a content-related pause, which is that you'll go, what? Excuse me? Banana? Let me think. That's a content-related pause, and that is absolutely fine here. But what we do have is we have this critical point where it says, only rarely to search for language. So we can get stuck for a word, but rarely. So that's a bit tough, isn't it? That's quite a tough marker. And then finally, we can say develops topic coherently and appropriately. So we also need to look after that, because that's quite tricky. Given some of the questions in IELTS, it can be quite difficult to develop those topics in a coherent manner within 1 minute, 2 minutes. So we will listen out for that, and I will have some comments about Domenico's performance in that regard. Then if we look at 7, we mentioned the same things, but you can see that it's a bit more forgiving. We may demonstrate language-related hesitation, some repetition, etc., etc. I'm not going to go through it again. It's just a little bit less than 8. All right, moving on to lexical resource. We'll look again at 8. So it says uses a wide vocabulary resource readily and flexibly to convey precise meaning. Now, I know that Domenico does have a wide range of vocabulary because, well, I kind of know him. I've seen the things that he says in chat, and I've had lessons with him in the past, and I've spoken to him, so I know he has a wide range of vocabulary. But I think the challenge actually for Domenico is more going to be this second part of using it flexibly to convey precise meaning. Because Domenico really always tries to use really great vocabulary. And because of that, sometimes I feel like he's using the vocabulary just to use the vocabulary, rather than specifically to convey that finer meaning. But we'll have a look at that. Maybe you'll disagree with me, and Domenico will have a chance to defend himself and say, Rich, what are you talking about? All right, let's move on. Uses less common and idiomatic vocabulary skillfully with occasional inaccuracies. That is sounding very much like Domenico to me, so I think we'll see a good example of that. And uses paraphrase effectively as required. So we want to know if he gets stuck, is he able to paraphrase? Let's listen out for that, because that's important. Okay, moving on to grammatical range. Again, these are the band 8 descriptors. Uses a wide range of structures. So we want to see our conditionals getting in there. We want to see some past perfect. We want to see some future perfect, continuous stuff. Okay, so we want our wide range of grammatical structures. And we also want to see a majority of error-free sentences with only very occasional inappropriacies or basic non-systematic errors. So that's an interesting one there. Again, very strict criteria for Band 8. Only very occasional inaccuracies or basic non-systematic errors. So we'll have to have a listen out for that. Then finally, moving on to pronunciation, we've got a wide range of pronunciation features, a wide range. That means that we want to hear different kinds of intonation. We want to hear some of the other features of pronunciation, such as emphasis in the sentence structure. You're the one who did it. 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 So different kinds of intonation in the different kinds of stress in the sentence, which we call prominence. That would be an example of a different pronunciation feature. Sustains flexible use of features with only occasional lapses. All right, so that's just to say, is it an act? Yes or no? And then next one is easy to understand throughout. Is easy to understand throughout. So just think about that. Are they easy to understand throughout? And L1 accent has a minimal effect on intelligibility. Notice it doesn't say no accent. It says you can have an accent, but your accent should not have an effect on intelligibility. Intelligibility is being able to understand the candidate. All right. Let me just check our chat here to see if we have any questions. All right. No real amazing questions. So let's move on. I think probably, Daisy, it's actually the time more than anything, because I'm kind of streaming at a weird time here, a bit later than I normally would, and on a day when I don't think I've ever streamed on a Wednesday before. Anyway, we want to move on now. So we don't need to look at these individually again because we've already done that. So we can skip ahead. And I think we can jump right into having a listen, actually, to the first test. So let's see if this goes right, because I had to set this up sort of last minute. And fingers crossed everything goes well when I push the big red button. Ah, wonderful. So what you will see here is you see a lovely, handsome examiner there in the bottom right. And we're going to hear him speak. And then we're going to hear the candidate respond. And I think I will play this in parts. And then we'll discuss each part and see what we think about that. All right, let's give this a go. Good afternoon. My name is Richard Nolan. Can you tell me your name, please?
My name is Mango, and my family name is Lafauci, but you can refer to me as Dominique, which is the English version of my name.
Very good. And can you tell me where you're from?
Well, actually, from a considered coastal town where a sense of community prevails with residents familiar with one another. This small urban area by the sea gives off a super tight-knit community vibe.
All right, very good. At this point, I will say, can I see your identification? But this is not a real test, so we're not going to do that bit.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Certainly. Here is my passport, which I used to register for this exam a few weeks ago.
Very good.
Give me a second to dig it out of my pocket. Please take a look at my credentials.
Thank you. Now, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about your hometown. Can you tell me where you're from originally?
Well, technically, I was born in Messina because my town is actually situated within the province of Messina, just about a 30-minute drive away from my town. It's on the northeast coast of Sicily. Like I mentioned before, it gives off it's super tiny community vibe. Everyone knows everyone. So if you seek help from somebody, you have it at your fingertips.
Very good. And can I ask you, what kind of accommodation would you like to live in?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I'd say I'm kind of passionate about nature, the natural. I'm kind of passionate about the natural world, so I'd like to live in a detached house by the sea, so that I can get the chance to go diving whenever I want. Sorry.
Very good. How often do you visit a library?
Library. Unfortunately, I must admit that my town doesn't provide plenty of amenities. The last time, if my memory serves me correctly, I went to a library, to visit a library, also during my experience, my thrilling experience in Liverpool.
Thank
But
you.
if I want to get, if I want to, let me say, allow me, sorry, let me say, if I'm in the mood for visiting a library.
Wonderful. And I believe I'm back. So that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think for that one, I will thank Bill Gates and Microsoft. So thank you. Okay. Right. Hi, everyone. How you doing? So we're going to do feedback based on that little bit that we listened to. And then we're going to come back and listen to the other parts another time, because that has completely killed the flow. So just give me a second here. Let me load everything up. And fingers crossed, everything loads up okay. Seems to be. Yeah, it's all right. Kind of. I might have to change the program that I use to as my interactive whiteboard, because I've got a weird feeling that it's part of the problem, which is a shame, because I do like this program, Active Inspire, but it's outdated and they don't update it anymore. Anyway, right. Yeah, so what I think would be interesting is having a little look at the script first of all, and then we'll talk about pronunciation. So let's start out by looking at the script, because from the script we can see basically everything apart from pronunciation. Did it save my script? Auto recovered. Thank God for that. That's one of those things, isn't it? So the reason why they need auto recovery is because of things like this. I genuinely have a feeling that what happened there is my computer updated while I was doing loads of stuff, and that's why it crashed. Right, so we're going to go to when the questions started, and if you notice, the questions were a little bit weird. I did get these from supposedly genuine IELTS exam, but let's have a look what we got here. There's something about type of accommodation. So it was here, and it starts with, now in this part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about your hometown. Can you tell me where you're from originally? And then Domenico says, well, technically I was born in, and we've got the rest of it. So let's have a look at that language and think about those band descriptors and see what we think about that based upon the IELTS band descriptors. So in terms of fluency, if you remember rightly, we were looking at 8, and it said fluent with only very occasional repetition or self-correction. So actually in this part of the test, I do think that we see that there is basically fluency with very little hesitation and self-correction. I think we do see that in terms of fluency. It says hesitation may be used to find words or grammar, but most content will be related. I think that's fine. And then we move on to topic development is coherent, appropriate, and relevant. So let's have a look at that. My question here, how often do you visit a library? Library. Unfortunately, I must admit that my town doesn't provide plenty of amenities. Amenities is quite fancy word to use there, but all right. It's okay. Especially with plenty, when plenty can be kind of a more just way of talking, but it's all right. The last time and then a self-correction. This is actually called a restart, and a restart is fine. I do it all the time. People do it all the time. It's all right. The last time and then if my memory serves me correctly, nice little phrase, I went to a library, visited a library, so we've got a bit of self-correction again. You want to watch out for that too much, Domenico, because you do it quite a lot, and it is in the band descriptor about this kind of going back excessively, negatively affecting fluency. Also, during my experience, and again, we've got a self-correction, during my experience, my thrilling experience in Liverpool, right? So maybe watch out a little bit for this hopping back, which it's a natural thing to do. I just did it. I said, it's a natural thing to do, right? So there you go. It's a natural thing to do. People do it, but maybe work on limiting that a little bit, because we've got several examples of it here, right in the same place. If I'm in the mood for visiting the library. I got to hop on a bus. Nice bit of language there as well. We hop on a bus. It's funny you should ask that, because when I was a kid growing up, I wasn't an avid reader. So again, lots of really strong vocabulary. That's one of Domenico's strengths, and he's playing to his strength there. So talking about coherence, appropriate and relevant, I think in this particular answer, I think it's good, but I think I would probably add a directly addressing the question here, which is how often do you visit a library? And Domenico has shifted it straight away onto the last time I visit a library. So it might be worthwhile just throwing in not very often, to be honest, because my town doesn't provide a great deal of amenities, and then move on to the last time just so we cover our bases in answering the question. So moving on to lexical resource. Wide resource, readily and flexibly used to discuss topics and convey precise meaning. Seems good to me. Skillful use of less common and idiomatic terms. Now, I think what we would argue about is perhaps the skillful use. I'm not quite sure about this pickup games here. Anyone in chat tell me what pickup games means? Is that an American term? I remember there was a small beach near my house where we used to have a blast playing football together. Again, have a blast is great vocabulary. I just worry about how it comes out. Like when you say like have a blast, it's really emphatic. It's not just like have fun. It's like, whoa, we had a blast. It's like really emotional, Just being careful about using those extreme expressions of emotion and how you use them. Let me check my stream while I have a moment. Okay, looks good. Great. And chat, how you doing? It's an American term. Pickup games is kind of games made by kids, is it? Pickup football is an American term. All right. Hold my hand up. Hey, the examiner might not know it, though. Depends if your examiner's British or American. All right. Great. So let's move on to our next band descriptor and have a little chat about that. I've been really put off by the crash. It's got me all over the place. All right. So grammatical range and accuracy. In part one, it's not like you get a great deal of opportunity to express a wide range of grammatical forms and accuracy. So, hey, we'll let Domenico off here. We don't really expect all kinds of amazing forms in part one, but let's see what we got. So we got, I would call it skillful use of the past and present, obviously. And there's a used to in there. So we got this using used to talk about past habits. So I think given the opportunity of the situation that we had there, no problems, but we couldn't necessarily say that that's the band that we want, a band 7, band 7.5, because, well, it's just a part 1. We're just using the past there, and we'll tend to look for those more advanced and complex structures in the other parts of the test, especially the final part with the discussion, when you really get an opportunity to use hypothetical tenses and all the rest of it. And then I think we come to talking about pronunciation. So, comments in the chat about pronunciation? One thing I've noticed is that since the last time that we listened to Domenico's recording, I actually found his pronunciation significantly clearer today. I don't know if that was due to a concerted effort or not. But Domenico also, like our good friend Manuel, is someone who occasionally needs to slow it down a little bit because his mouth runs off into the next. And I know that we were just talking about fluency, and fluency is important and all the rest of it. But there's no harm in taking a step back and ensuring that the things that you're saying are quite clear. I used some language detection to detect the words that were said in the conversation, and it did also have some problems with that at different times. It particularly seems to be an issue for Domenico at the very start of his answers. I don't know if you noticed that, Domenico, and it makes me wonder whether it's a slight nervous thing, that when the examiner asks a question, your very initial response is to kind of go, "Hi, I'm Domenico Lavaggi, and I'm going to tell you about this stuff," and then you start to be clear, and then you're like, "I live in a small town in Italy," and but just before that, you just kind of fire out a lot of words together, and maybe it's just kind of a habit of speaking and kind of getting things out really fast in the first instance. So it might be worth just focusing a little bit on clarity when you're starting, and then let yourself run off as you carry on there. So that's my comments primarily about pronunciation. I think we've got a lot of intonation there, and I think we did hear some other features of pronunciation. I actually think, specifically from my perspective and from what I can see, the area to focus on for Domenico is really clarity of sounds, because I think his intonation's good. He's got that lovely Italian intonation, and we understand that. We can use Italian intonation to express ourselves in English, and it's very comprehensible and very communicatively understood. So people can understand what you mean when you use Italian intonation. All right. So let's see. We got any comments there in the chat? Yeah, run around the bush is not an expression in English. Manuel, the expression in English is beat about the bush, beat about the bush, beat about the bush, beat about the bush, beat about the bush. And there's no other particular comments there. Shall I try and recover and we carry on with this? Sure, why not? All right. I was going to say, hey, let's continue the stream another day, but let's do it. Let's go into it. Let's try this. Let's go for part 2. Give me a moment while I once again load up the video and pray that it doesn't crash. Actually, we could just do the MP3. Let's do the MP3. I don't hear anything. Do you guys hear anything?
Memory serves me correctly. I went to a library. The library was...
All right, so that was our answer from before about the library. Let's move on from that.
When I was a kid growing up, I wasn't an avid reader. I I used to be more of an outdoorsy together.
All right, so that was the end of part 1, and now we're going to hear the introduction to part 2. All right, thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a topic. I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to think about what you're going to say. You can make some notes if you wish. Okay, so because we're online, I'm going to just share part of my screen here. I want you to describe a time you made a mistake and learned something from it. And here is the card for you. So you now have 1 minute to prepare. And this is real to the exam, as everyone will know who has been studying for IELTS and watching for IELTS, that the candidate receives the card. You can see the card here that I gave to Domenico. So we can all have a look and do this together. And we're going to talk about his English as he goes through it. Yeah, we all had some internet issues. Hey, we're doing what we can. Pallavi, if you're going to do an IELTS exam, which is very useful for studying in university abroad, then perhaps you will have to do an IELTS exam. Yeah, it's the most popular, the most well-respected exam worldwide in English, but it does have the disadvantage that the qualification is only valid for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we go.
I would say, let me start by saying that I'm a kind of stickler. So because it's quite a punctilious person, and I tend to go hard on myself when I happen to make kind of silly errors. But one time I would like to talk about. One time I made a horrible mistake. Was about occurred about well, occurred many years ago. I was doing I was working on my master's degree dissertation in Mexico, but when I arrived in Mexico, I remember my supervisor and I scheduled our first meeting at a quaint little restaurant, which happened to be in the city center. To be honest, I didn't know. I didn't know that my bearings because I just landed in Veracruz, Mexico. So I couldn't get enough time to acclimatize myself to the new surroundings. So when I woke up that day when I woke up, I was overwhelmed with a mixture of feelings that ranged from excitement and anxiety because I didn't know that person. I didn't know that. I really remember. I didn't know the exact location. So I got lost. I got lost because I I didn't hadn't bought a new number, a new SIM for that could operate, could function in that location. So I got lost.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to Right, so let's talk about that. Now, I would add that I think part 2 can be particularly challenging because the situations come from nowhere and you really have to think on your feet. So it is pretty tough. And there's a couple of people commenting in the chat about being nervous and so on. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough exam, and it's totally normal for people to get nervous. Bear in mind, it is actually possible to be very nervous in the exam, but also perform very well. I've seen that with Cambridge candidates over the years, that they'll come in and be, shaking and sweating and all kinds, but then they produce the English, and that's the main thing, producing the English. So even if you're nervous, you can still perform very well. And if anyone in the chat thinks that they can do this without getting nervous, then feel free to come on right now. I'll give you a Zoom link in the chat. You can come on live and do an IELTS exam, and we'll see whether you get nervous or not. So let's have a look at the part 2 answer that Domenico produced. I do have a lovely script of this, which is this. Okay, now I can immediately say that this amount of text here is not a lot, given that that was a 2-minute answer. And it was so long, actually, that I interrupted him, you'll notice. All right? I actually said, thank you. And I had to stop him from continuing to speak. Okay? Which is an indication that there might be an issue. Not necessarily, but that there might be. Now, if we look at it, we actually see that it's a lot more confusing than Domenico's part 1 answers. So I think that the performance in part 2 was a little bit worse, actually. And there are some nerves coming into play here, but a lot of repetition. And I think partly it's the fact that there's an idea of the exam has presented you with this square hole, and now you're trying to fit your triangular piece into the square hole or something like that. It's kind of this idea of, oh God, now I have to tell my little anecdote about when I went to Mexico and made a mistake and whatever. Now, different strategies work for different people. But personally, I would take a slightly different approach. I would not save up special anecdotes for the exam. I would instead just respond naturally in the way that I would normally talk about something. So, first of all, let me say, yes, I'm a native speaker and this is super easy for me, and I am not under any circumstances trying to compare myself to a student. And I think if someone asked me to do this in Spanish, I don't think my Spanish would be capable right now because my Spanish is very rusty. However, I am going to give an alternative demonstration now in English of this task. So we got that task there. Let me just grab that. There's a perfect story that just come to my mind, but it's kind of personal, so I can't tell that one. That might be a nice thing to say in the exam, actually. All right, so I'm going to talk about something that happened to me just 20 minutes ago, actually. So the mistake that I made was that I was trying to do an IELTS stream live on YouTube. And really, I've been so busy recently that I didn't get a chance to sort of check everything before the stream went live. And so what happened is my computer had not been rebooted for quite a long time. And also I was doing something new that I've never done before, which is that I was streaming my video and I was streaming my interactive whiteboard and I was streaming a video of pre-recorded of me and an IELTS candidate talking. And all of this was a bit too much for my computer, so the stream crashed mid-stream. So the mistake, obviously, how the mistake was made, it was made because I just didn't have enough time to test everything, and then under pressure, my computer collapsed. So what did I learn from that? I think what I learned is that it's important before doing sort of final projects to do a test run. And so what I actually did is I decided midstream, that is right now, that this stream in fact is a test run. And the things that I learned from that are, do test runs, especially when technology is involved, and always make sure that you do your Windows updates as soon as possible, because otherwise you might try something new like an IELTS stream and then everything crashes, and before you'll know it, you've got Windows Update running while everybody's waiting for you to resume your live stream. All right. Okay, so that was my example of an answer there for this question. Now, you can see that I did not prepare anything there. There's no special anecdote prepared. So I'm no longer trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, because instead I'm just looking at this task right now and going, okay, I'm going to talk about this thing that happened recently. Bear in mind, your mistake doesn't have to be some otherworldly, some really fancy thing with all these little anecdotes. So you look at Domenico's story here, and you can tell he's got all these lovely anecdotes tied into it, but it's not, for some reason, it's not quite coming off. And I really feel like it's because it's that trying to, oh yeah, I've got that really good anecdote. If I can just make this anecdote perfectly fit what the IELTS exam is asking me for, then I'll be able to say all of my cool idioms, like, because I bet we can find some cool idioms in here. Yeah, see, look, there's all this stuff about being overwhelmed with feelings that range from excitement and anxiety. And I feel like these kind of things are like phrases that Domenico has ready to fire out when he does this anecdote. Correct me if I'm wrong, Domenico. I might be wrong. Maybe all of this was just on the spot and it's what I'm saying is nonsense, but that's how I feel. And I feel like there would be some benefit to free yourself a little. Like, do not tie yourself to your special anecdotes that you have prepared. Just allow yourself to communicate instead. So really focus on the card and just focus on communicating what's on that card and allow yourself to speak about it. Okay, Domenico says it's on the spot, so my insight might not be correct there, but okay. There definitely feels like there's something sticking there, which when we compare to your part one performance, I think your part one performance was much superior. And now as an examiner, I'm looking at this and thinking, in fluency, maybe this guy is not as good as I thought before. So we're reeling it back a bit. Now, I think we should give Domenico the full benefit of the doubt here and have a listen to part 3. And also, I do have a second exam where I believe Domenico performed better, but we're not going to listen to that today. Sorry, Domenico. But we will listen to it in a future stream, and you'll see that he performed better in that one because he felt more comfortable with the exam and everything. But anyway, we can move on now to part 3, unless anyone has interesting comments. So Anawat has mentioned using the STAR technique. Yeah, everybody loves the STAR technique. Situation, task, action, result. If that works for you, that's great. I personally think that, again, I think it might be slightly overcomplicating the issue when it comes to this, because the examiner is not marking you based on star. They're marking you based on what's here. And you can see here, we just have those 3 points. So it's just, what mistake did you make? How did you make it? When did you make it? And what did you learn from it? Boom, 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 boom. And you can just answer those questions as if someone's asking you, what mistake? What mistake was made? Oh, this. How was it made? Like this. When was it made? This time. What did you learn from it? This. I mean, that's where you can run away with it, isn't it? When they say, what did you learn from it? I learn all kinds of stuff from my mistakes. So, the STAR technique that Anawat's mentioning, though, is really good for competency-based interviews, which are very popular in the English-speaking world. We love our competency-based interviews. All right, so we are going to shoot back into this, and now we're going to have a look at our part 3. So let's carry on. I'll hit play. Discuss some more general questions related to the topic from part 2. Thinking about mistakes that people make. What kind of mistakes do children make at school?
That's a very interesting question. Let me have a little think for a minute, for a few seconds. Well, I believe that the most common mistakes that children can make at school are related to not listening to the teachers when they want to help, they want to provide help or valuable pieces of advice to help them grow and improve, to help them grow. So, and they just fail all over the world, so they tend to space out and ignore the teachers. For example, when a teacher gives them homework to do, they just engage in this activity at their own convenience.
Thank you.
And they don't understand the fact, the importance of practice, or the practice space practice, spaced, or I don't remember. Well, I got a little lost, so maybe I can say that the importance of practice, of getting practical experience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How do you teach a child it's okay to make mistakes?
Well, when it comes to teaching, first of all, you need to have a great deal of patience. That's the first ingredient, the ingredient that you need to put into your teaching style. Moreover, when a child or a student makes a mistake, you just need to encourage the individual by saying that it's from our mistakes we can learn, we can improve ourselves. Because in my humble opinion, mistakes are just part of our learning process.
Thank you. So I just want to comment, and you probably noticed that I can see the chat buzzing a little bit. I think that was a good answer. And we've got their text here. There's a few things we can say about it which can be better. We can look at them. Well, when it comes to teaching, first of all, you need to have a great deal of patience. That's the first ingredient you need to put into your teaching style. We could argue the toss about whether talking about putting ingredients in a teaching style is a well-used analogy or not. I'm going to say yeah. I think a teacher can easily be considered a recipe and putting ingredients into a teaching style, I like it. I like that. Some people who are very strict about things might say, what is that? I've never heard of that before. Well, I like it. Moreover, when a child or student makes a mistake, you just need to encourage the individual by saying that it's from our mistakes that we can learn and improve ourselves. Because, in my humble opinion, mistakes are just part of our learning process. Right. That's a top answer. It's a really good answer. That's what we want to see. Okay. Now, there was quite a bit of false starting and going back and forth, as we've heard before as well. Again, it would be nice to work on that a little bit more to get something that's a bit more fluid. But the language here is great, the content's great, and the way it was delivered was very good as well. So this is what you want to. There we go. It's up there, isn't it? Bum bum bum. This is what you want to aim for, Domenico. This kind of stuff's very good. I like that. See what you guys think. Okay, people are still discussing the question, so I'm going to leave you with that. Let's move on to the next question. Why do people have the tendency to make the same mistakes?
Those individuals who asked those injuries, I think in my humble opinion, I don't want to be unduly critical, but I think those individuals who are stubborn as a mule tend to make the same mistakes. So they kind of they have kind of developed a tunnel vision mindset, which prevents them from looking the problem from a different angle.
Thank you. Right, let's pause for a moment. So we had this, I don't want to be overly critical, but I think those people are as stubborn as a mule, to be honest. So that's this one. It's the test stream, everybody. It's the test stream. We're testing our new technology. Okay, I don't want to be overly critical, but I think those people are as stubborn as a mule, to be honest. Yeah. I want to say, ooh, stubborn as a mule, it's great. I like the phrase stubborn as a mule, but it doesn't sound right here. It just doesn't, the delivery doesn't quite sound right. And I think we need more context before you can start talking about as stubborn as a mule. Because think about it. We're just talking about making the same mistakes. We're not talking about someone deliberately making the same mistake. This could be accidental. So stubbornness is not necessarily a concern here yet. You've got to give me some more context before you can start talking about stubborn as a mule. I know it's a nice expression and you want to get it out, but focus on the question first and then bring the language into it. So if we wanted to get to talking about stubborn as a mule, then where do we go? Well, we need to take it to somewhere where we're talking about someone who refuses to learn from their mistakes. And that's different. So let's have a look at the question again. Why do people tend to make the same mistakes? I think we have to start by saying, well, there's two types of people. There are people who don't reflect, and therefore, without meaning to, then they will make the same mistakes again and again. people just don't spend enough time reflecting. And then there's the people who just won't be told. No matter what you say, they always think they're right. You might well say that they're as stubborn as a mule. It still sounds weird when I say it like that. I feel like I'm trying to shoehorn it. I feel like I'm trying to force the phrase to come out. And I'm just not sure if that's a good idea. It's a nice phrase. And I get it. You want to use it. But sometimes trying to shoehorn the phrases like that, just, I want to get it out, I want to get it out. It's not really worth it. There's better phrases you could use here. These kinds of people tend, just say, you could use the word stubborn. Just say a lot of people are just so stubborn. Is that really any worse than saying stubborn as a mule? A lot of people are just so stubborn. They always think they're right. And no matter what other people say to them, they're just not willing to accept that there's another perspective to look at the world. And because of that, even when they use reflection, even when they look at the way that they do things, they are not willing to accept that there's another way of doing things. And these kind of people tend to make the same mistakes again and again. They have kind of developed a tunnel vision mindset. I like that. That I really like. A tunnel vision mindset. And the irony there is that tunnel vision is a collocation, but tunnel vision mindset, that's a Domenico Fauci invention, but it sounds great. Maybe it's not a Domenico Fauci invention, but it sounds like a Domenico Fauci invention and it still sounds great. So there's a certain irony there that just using the language and coming up creatively with a way of saying something has resulted in something really nice that sounds good. A tunnel vision mindset. I almost want to use that now. I want to start talking to people about their tunnel vision mindset. So they've kind of developed a tunnel vision mindset which prevents them from looking at the problem from a different angle. I like that as well. So I actually quite like this answer, apart from the as stubborn as a mule part, which to me sounds out of place. Otherwise, I like it. What do you guys think? Domenico says it came naturally to me. I think that might be part of the problem, though, Domenico. It might be the fact that when you think of this collocation, you think it just means like, I think people like that are really stubborn. But saying as stubborn as a mule, you don't just use it as a synonym to mean really stubborn. It's not used like that. It has that meaning, but you have to look at the way people use things. See if I can get some real examples. What you really want to do is go on Youglish, because one of the problems is when you search for examples on Google, you often get people giving examples of the phrase. And whenever someone gives you an example of the phrase, and it's a very specific phrase like this, they normally mess it up. And it actually doesn't sound that natural, because they give the phrase in sort of this self-defining way. I'll give you an example of what I mean, right? She never changes her mind. She's as stubborn as a mule. That just doesn't sound right, because no one's ever going to say something like that, right? It's not the situation when people use this. Let me show you what comes to mind when I think of this phrase. This dang door just never opens right. She's as stubborn as a mule. There you go. That's how that phrase comes out. It's like that. It's that Texan kind of thing. This darn tractor, she just don't start on the proper days. She's as stubborn as a mule, boy. Right? That's how people use that. Or like a Clint Eastwood film. Maybe you hear it like that. She's as down stubborn as a mule. Right? Then that's how it's used. This is why Youglish is so good, though, because you punch that into Youglish and you should get a lovely real example of someone saying it. Dare I try it? I bet we get like an English with Lucy example.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Oh my God. It's not English with Lucy. It's the other lady. What's her name? Rachel. She's come up straight away on Youglish. Okay, next.
Domain, but Coking, stubborn as a mule,
That was interesting. Wait, say that again.
city attempted to condemn the house under eminent domain, but Coking, stubborn as a mule, fought the government and won.
Okay.
Stubborn as a mule.
You hear his accent? Stubborn as a mule. He's got the right accent to say this.
Chucking acid at him.
Okay. This vial. Hits the ground, just splashes acid all around you.
Stubborn as a mule.
It works when you got that accent. Stubborn as a mule. All right, and there's no other examples on Youglish, which kind of tells me it's a very specific phrase. That Donald Trump, he's as stubborn as a mule. Yeah, I can't imagine you ever using that phrase, Daisy, and it sounding correct. Or sounding natural. But hey-ho. All right, I've tried to make my case here for use of language. Let's focus on the positives. Love that second part. Tunnel vision mindset, which prevents them from looking at the problem from a different angle. And let's finish up. Do you think people who use different devices, for example, calculators, make mistakes less often?
I don't think so. I don't agree with this statement because using electronic devices can help you become more accurate in your calculations, in your work. You can submit an almost perfect work, but you need to rely on your creativity, because that's your creativity. When you get to tap into your creativity, that's when you can prevent mistakes.
Bingo. Nice answer. Although I'm not sure I agree with it. I think it's a nice... I think the English was good. I'm just thinking about that. I'm like, does creativity help you prevent mistakes? It can, yeah. But yeah, it's a lovely answer. Maybe I do agree with it. So the question was, do you think people who use different devices, for example, calculators, make mistakes? Really weird question. And Domenico has a good answer. I don't think so. I don't agree with this statement, because using electronic devices can help you become more accurate in your calculations in your work. You can submit an almost perfect work, but you need to rely on your creativity, because when you get to tap into your creativity, that's when you can prevent your mistakes. This I particularly like. Tap into your creativity. Lovely little collocation there. I think also we've got some other examples of good collocations in there, such as electronic devices. We do have a misuse there of submitting an almost perfect work. So what's the problem? The problem is that work in English is uncountable, and we don't tend to use work in this way to say like a project. So you'd have to substitute it with a countable version like a piece of work, or you could more informally use job. But when you submit a piece of work for your boss, you could submit an almost perfect piece of work. That would be our replacement there. The other interesting thing I noticed here, and this might be something to watch out for, Domenico, if you want to improve your pronunciation a little. It sounded like you said creativity, ea, whereas it's ear, creativity, ea, creativity. So you said like creativity. Let's listen.
Into your creativity.
So you're saying creativity, and we're looking for creative. Oh my God, creativity. There. Okay. Creativity. Oh my God, am I saying your one now? Rich, what's happening to you today? Creative. Creativity, EA, creativity, EA, creativity. Do you have creativity? Yes, I do. Creativity. And let's listen to Domenico.
When you get to tap into your creativity.
He says creativity, and the pronunciation should be creative, creativity. EA. Right. Got it. So look out for that, because what you might find is that actually might be a common mistake for you with that particular sound, which is create. EA. 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 Right. Creativity. Yeah. You might find yourself defaulting to EA. Creativity. It's a common mispronunciation. EA, creativity, create. In fact, I think one of my students made exactly this mistake yesterday. Interestingly enough. Anyway, we're going to leave that there. That was the full sort of exam 1 of Mr. Lafalci. I want to say thank you again, sir, for giving us all this opportunity. I think it takes a lot of courage to submit this kind of audio recording to be projected on the internet. I am not going to save this stream, or I'm not going to make it public. So people watching it now, you're the only people who will see it. But I will post the link on our Discord server. The reason I'm not going to save this stream is I think that I was a bit of a disaster today, and my computer was a disaster. But we will do this again with Domenico Lafalci exam 2, and I don't know when I'll do that, but it might be for our Saturday stream. It's either going to be our Saturday stream, or it's going to be an impromptu stream if for some reason I'm feeling super energetic, which is unlikely because I'm doing like so much at the moment. I don't want to complain, but I'm a little bit worn out, to be honest. I need a bit of a rest. Anyway, folks, again, homework. I kind of want to correct homework on a stream when things went right, rather than my computer exploded and things started going crazy. So we're going to actually leave the homework again for a future stream. Sorry, folks. I know it's been over a week and I haven't looked at it yet. And I really appreciate your submissions. So this is, if anyone hasn't done this yet, Pallavi, then this is your opportunity. It's a 2-minute audio recording talking about your goals and how you're going to make new habits obvious, appealing, easy, and rewarding. And the way that I want you to submit that is send it to Rich on our Discord server. So do not send it to my email address. You need to send it to me on our Discord server. What the hell is our Discord server? Look, I'll tell you all about it. So our Discord server is right here. I've posted that in the chat. So join our amazing server. Join our amazing server. It's a free unicorn for the first 100 joinees. All right, and you have a few more days to complete your homework. For you guys who've already submitted your homework, how are those habits going? How's it going with creating a new positive habit? Are things going well for you? Things are going great from my perspective, apart from the fact that I'm just firing on too many cylinders, I think, is probably the problem here. Hey ho, that's life sometimes. All right, let's move on to questions then. I'll give you some free question time. How's it going, everybody? Let's just have some interaction. I feel a bit exhausted after that. You know, I've got a newfound respect for Mr. Adrian Domenico. I have watched a few of his videos, and I'm going to admit that I found a lot of things that I disagreed with him on in his videos and in his analysis. But having just done what he does, which is analyze people's responses live, I actually think it's a lot more difficult than I was giving credit for. Because actually analyzing language is quite difficult when you're on your own in a room and it's just you giving a grade to a candidate. But doing it on the internet live when your computer's exploding, it's tricky. And I hope that I can perform a little bit better the second time. So, nice one, Mr. Adrian. You're never going to see this, but kudos. Right, let's see what we got. Daisy says, I've got to go to bed. Still difficult for me to wake up at 6 a.m. I go to bed before 11. I can only wake up at 6:30. Daisy, have you tried light therapy? Julia, I think I already have yours. Let me check. Yeah, I've got your homework. I have homework from Anawat, Daisy, Katerina, Julia, and Vladimir. And I know that Manuel mentioned he emailed that through. Anawat says, it sounds like if you were the examiner, you don't like fancy words. That's not the case. That's not the case, Anawat. But I wanna clarify that though, because it's a really good point. So I'll tell you about my experience as a speaking examiner for Cambridge English. And I did that for 5 years. Right now, I'm a speaking examiner for Ascentis. But Ascentis exams are significantly different than IELTS and Cambridge English. So we're not really going to talk about... I'm not going to pull from my Ascentis experience. It's a different thing. But Cambridge English is very similar to IELTS. Very similar to IELTS. And I'll tell you that the Cambridge English examiners, officially, you shouldn't discuss candidates' marks, or just, you shouldn't really discuss anything about the exam. You just do your job, right? But of course, everybody discusses the candidates' marks. Everybody discusses the exam. Of course they do, the people, right? So the examiners, as soon as the candidates walk out the room, the first thing that like 95% of examiners will be like is, what did you give him? Which you shouldn't actually do. You should not discuss them. When they train you, they say, don't discuss the marks. But everyone does it. Right? You're like, oh, 7? Really? I would have given 6.5. It's all the time, right? So, and from this, you do get some interesting insights, because you start to understand examiners' individual mindsets to how they give points. And one of the pet peeves that a lot of examiners have is when students come in and they just blast you with idioms. They're just like, yo, it's idiom time, right? And I had a perfect example, right? When this guy came in, right? And it's like, hello, my name is Richard Nolan, and this is my colleague, David Rose. He'll just be listening. And you are? And the candidate's like, hello, my name is Miguel, and I am from Zaragoza. It is a small town in the north of Spain, and it is famous for the cider. And the other weekend, we went to a special cider festival, and we had a whale of a time with our friends, and we really had to think out of the box in order to discover... You get the idea, right? It was like, here's my 5 idioms, and I'm gonna slap you around the face with those in the first 5 seconds of the exam, after the examiner just asked for my name. Now, you're not going to get punished for that. It's not like the examiner's going to go, whoa, this guy's obviously pre-intermediate. No. It's just, you're not going to really gain anything either, because it's completely synthetic communication. It's inappropriate, and it's just kind of like, okay, that's cool. Let's have a conversation now. Okay. So, yeah, there is language analysis going on. And obviously, demonstrating your language skill is important. And it's a speaking exam, so of course, it's going to be a little bit synthetic. But just be extra careful about those very specific idioms, because most idioms actually are quite extreme. They're quite extreme. Like, have a whale of a time. That is one hell of a time. And also, there's a certain kind of person that would use the expression have a whale of a time. And, well, for one, I'm not it. So it's difficult for me to use. It's the kind of, I imagine someone who gets really excited, like a very excitable person, just like, oh, that was great. I loved it so much. Oh, we had an absolute whale of a time. It's like, it's like boom, It's like the rocket has just gone whoosh into space, and we got fireworks, That's a whale of a time. It's like a real good time, So that's where you've got to be a little bit careful. Having a whale of a time is not just like a good time. It's not a great time. It's not even an awesome time. It's like even more than that. Right. So that's the nuance, and that's where it can be problematic to learn idiomatic expressions in a little table where you're like, oh, here's my 5 idioms and here's my 5 normal phrases, and I just match them all up, right? So like whale of a time is like really good time, and like the elephant in the room is just whatever someone hasn't said. And, raining cats and dogs is heavy rain, right? But there's a bit more to it than that. So you have to see it used. That's the thing. That's why Youglish is so good, because you can find people actually using it just when they say it. But that is golden. When you see real examples of people using language, it's golden, because it gives you the context, and then you get it. Right? It's not just a phrase on a piece of paper, and it's not a bloody English teacher giving you the synthetic on-the-spot example. It's real language, and you can see how someone's used it. You can go, boom, I've got it, because I've heard someone use it. And now I understand the emotion involved in that phrase, and I've got the context. It's amazing. Anyway, I hope that answers your question, Anawat. Daisy says, how about making your bed? You do it every day, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I wanted to give you some advice, Daisy, about light therapy. So when you wake up in the morning, first thing, turn the light on. Do you notice my light is super bright? There's 2 reasons why my light is super bright. One is because this is the room that I record videos in. But 2 is because the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, hit that light, turn it on, I get blasted with it. In the summertime, even better, you just go outside, just look at the sky. Maybe not in Hanoi because often there's clouds and stuff. But yeah, get the light on, get it really bright. And what that does is it starts to train your circadian rhythm. It tells your body the sun is up, it's time to be awake. And then at this time of night, you're looking at the stream right now. Have you dimmed the brightness down? Have you turned your light off? Because ideally, that's what you would do. And if you don't want to do that, then you can get these special glasses that filter the blue light, which I think they're called blue light filter glasses or something. Cost you like $10 or something, maybe cheaper in Vietnam. And they filter the blue light so that you can still look at a screen and it doesn't tell your brain that it's the sun. So it doesn't affect your circadian rhythm. I found light therapy to be incredibly useful for getting up early in the morning. The sky near my house is clear, says Daisy. Is it? That's lovely. Yeah, I know. Whenever I reference Hanoi sky, I'm talking about Tay Ho, because that's where I used to live. And for some reason, it just always used to be cloudy over Tay Ho. Hey, I loved Vietnam the last time I was there, by the way, though. Recently, last month. It was amazing. I can't wait to go there again. Really. I had a whale of a time. I actually did. I'll tell you what, I actually did have a whale of a time. I had an absolute whale of a time in Vietnam. There you go. No, I had a bloody brilliant time. I don't know about a whale of a time, but I had a bloody brilliant time. Ah, great. What else we got? Put it mildly, Daisy digging the pros and cons of fears. Okay, whatever. Elephant in the room, bad feeling, impossible to... Not necessarily bad feeling, Manuel. Elephant in the room is something that people are avoiding. But it might not be a bad feeling so much. Riadul, I'm a student of linguistics. Since when? Really? You never said that before. Student of linguistics, I would seek some suggestions. Well, first of all, Riadul, join our bloody Discord. Why are you not on our Discord server? Okay? Join our Discord and you can have a whale of a time with it. I would love to visit Taiwan, Ashley. I'm all about Taiwan. I'm a big, big, big fan of Taiwan. Absolutely love Taiwan, and I would absolutely love to visit, and I will. I will. In like 3 years, okay? I feel a bit burnt out. Taiwanese mochi tastes the best. I don't know anything about Taiwanese mochi, but what I can tell you is that Taiwanese computers are the only computers, because Taiwan is basically the producer of 99% of all of the microchips in the world. And I would love to go to Taiwan and like see some factories and stuff. I know that sounds nerdy as hell, but I'd love to do it. Domenico, Rich, I'm a night owl, but I need to get my ass out of bed early. I usually don't have trouble doing it. This morning, for example, I leapt out of bed at 6 a.m. to write an essay. I can imagine, Domenico. Taiwan's famous for sport bikes. Don't know anything about that. One of my colleagues is Taiwanese. She's in her late 60s, and she's the strictest teacher out of all of us. You should see her. She teaches. Maybe she's watching. Hello, hi Yahweh. She when she teaches the lower levels, and she's like, You know, if they make a mistake, you know, it's like, why would you put a capital letter there? Don't put capital letter there. Look, it's simple. You put the capital letter there at the start. Why did you put it there? Don't put your capital letter there. She's like, darn, you've got to do it like this. Brilliant. It's like totally the opposite of how I teach. Giant bikes are adorable. I don't know anything about giant bikes. Is Riadul, you still there? Did you want to talk linguistics? I'm all about linguistics, and I love the opportunity to talk about linguistics. But you want to talk linguistics? You're gonna have to do it now because I'm hungry and I want to go and have some food. Yeah, pretty much, Daisy. Yeah, I think so. But she's been doing the job for like 30 years. But I think she's still got her Taiwanese roots. Yeah, she's so strict. I told her that I was teaching my students to use gunner, and oh my god, she, you know, you could almost see her monocle pop out of her eye. What? Gunner? Oh no. It's like, come on. It's not we're not in the 1940s, all right? People use gunner. Not to write. I think maybe she thought I meant writing. Okay. Don't write gunner. Unless you're on the internet, in which case everyone writes gunner. But when you're talking, yeah, everyone uses gunner. Are you going, teacher? I am in a minute, Pallavi. I was just waiting to see if Riadul wanted to talk about linguistics. But she... I don't know if Riadul is a boy or girl's name. I always assumed boy, but I've done that a few times. Originally I thought Pavia was a boy. Because she had a picture of Jeremy Brett as her profile picture. Yeah, obviously she's not. Yeah, no, really. Yeah, I was like, oh, Pavia, he said this. And she was like, I'm a girl. And I'm like, oh, why have you got a bloke as your profile picture? And she goes, that's Jeremy Brett. Which made me look like a bit of an idiot because I'd been talking about Jeremy Brett for half the stream. Oh, Riadul's a man as well. Well, Riadul, you wanted to talk linguistics? You were talking about questions? No, Daisy, I think we all know this. Daisy, I'm talking about ages ago, like when we did the first couple of Oxford Online English streams, and I had no idea. Daisy is kind of quite obviously a girl's name. Pallavi says, I feel your lessons are not for me because it's hard for me to understand your lesson every time. Do you get something out of it, though, Pallavi? Do you enjoy it? Do you find it interesting? Do you like interacting with the community? That's the main thing. Today's lesson was a bit of a mess anyway. I think I should do some easier lessons sometimes. I think I do make things quite difficult for people. And I really don't grade my language as much as I should. Grade your language means you, as a teacher, you put your language at the level of your students. This is something you have to be very careful with. You want to grade your language naturally, not overly synthetically. Yeah, something like that, Daisy. That's definitely what I try to do. But I try to link it all together. What people do tend to find is that the first time they have a class with me, they're like, what the hell? But then when they have the 50th class, they're like, it's good. I like the way you teach. It just takes like 50 classes. and then you get it. I want some guidelines to do better at linguistics, says Riadul. Well, can you be more specific? Is this linguistics at university? And when you say linguistics, do you mean sociolinguistics? Do you mean applied linguistics? Do you mean semantics and syntax? Do you mean... What do you mean? What do you mean by linguistics? Linguistics is the study of language. Not language itself. It is the study of language. Oh, Domenico, give yourself a break. If I were you, I would chill out a bit more. But yeah, you could go and do a task 1 if you want. I feel like you've done loads of prep. I feel like... keep up the exercise for sure, because the endorphins will really help you to relax for the exam. So nice bit of exercise, eating healthily, that'll help a lot, and just having some confidence that you have the ability. You 100% you have the vocabulary. Your vocabulary is good. Your vocabulary is good. Riadol, sociolinguistics and semantics. Well, that is a wide range of topics, Riadol. Get on our Discord where you can have a whale of a time. bit.ly/England chat. Come onto the Discord and I will talk with you. I will talk with you about sociolinguistics and semantics. My master's is in that. Specifically sociolinguistics, which I strongly dislike, by the way. But I can tell you all about it. And I can tell you why I dislike it. Right. All right, everyone. Yeah, I'm going to call it. And I'll do another stream at some point. We'll listen to Domenico Lafauci Part 2, preferably before Domenico has his actual exam, which I'm sure we wish him well with. Your exam is next Wednesday? Is that right, Domenico? Something like that? Which means I'll either do the analysis of the other part on the 16th or later. I tried a few things today which didn't quite work. One of them was I used a program that I wrote which interacts with ChatGPT and gives a transcription. And I realized about halfway through the stream that it was only about 80% accurate and it had missed out like 20% of the script. So I had to start editing it midstream, and that was a disaster as well. So, hey, you live and learn. You can only realize these things by trying them. And I'm happy to try stuff. Yeah, don't worry, Daisy. I'm all about it. All about it. All right, everyone. Thank you very much, and I will see you on our Discord where we always have a whale of a time. Thank you very much for watching. And do we want some outro music? I think I'm going to put some outro music on just for me. Just because I want some outro music. How can I do this? What do I want to listen to? I want to listen to this. Bye.